Welcome to the Welsh Yogi Podcast. Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine.
Okay, so
Because I'm interested in this. You have told me before. We can start recording now, I think. But I have heard this story before, but I completely forgot it. So I was thinking maybe you could say it again, so I can.
yeah, I haven't delved into it so deep for a while. So I'll have to do
Wait,
my
have you heard
best
this,
on that.
Backtrooper?
Never heard it.
Have you?
No.
Okay.
Welcome to the Welsh Yogi Podcast.
Welcome to the Welsh Yogi Podcast. We're with we got a special guest today. Back to Joel.
Harbol,
Harbol. Where you from, Jolie boy?
Bristol, Harbol,
From Brazil.
Brazil.
Right, and Joel, tell a story. We'll get more into it.
Yeah. So I
Later.
So it's a ghost story, and it's about my experience working in a care home. And there's two parts to this story. There's the dramatic sounding one, and there's the one that dramatically impacted me more. So I'll tell both of them, and maybe they can both sound dramatic and fun to hear.
The same story, though.
They're kind of related, same place. And
But two different stories.
Two different stories.
Right.
They're sort of related.
Okay, go for it.
So I started working in a care home. This is 2020. It was during the lockdown. I was working there before the lockdown, and they've got two care homes, and they're right next to each other. It's a nursing home, and which is a new build, not got a lot of history, so in theory not a lot of ghosts. And then there's this old building which is from like the 1800s or something. It's an old coach building, something like that.
That's haunted, that, isn't it? Definitely.
Yeah, you just hear about it and it's haunted.
Yeah. Not good.
And that's converted into a residential home. And both these places, either way, people are dying there. People are suffering. They're old. They've got dementia. Their minds are falling apart. Their bodies are falling apart. And so I'm working in this residential home, in this old building, the old coach house one, multiple hundreds of years old. And different things happen when you're working with people who are in that condition. Especially when you're aware of the things that you can't see. When you know that there's things that can be there that you cannot see, and then you're around people who are in states of being that aren't normal, you start to say, hang on a minute, all these things I've heard about, the subtle body, living entities that you can't see, ghostly entities, you start to think, hang on, is this going on here? Is this what's happening? And so
you were aware of some of these things before this happened, sort of thing. 'Cause
Yeah.
It was in 2020, right?
Yeah, 2020. So I met you guys in December 2019, and I came into this care home. Well, I started before that actually, but this story started. I moved into this side of the care home, the residential one, the old building, in May of 2020. So, I'd known you for a good 6 months then, and I'd been interested in this sort of stuff beforehand anyway.
And you were sufficiently brainwashed, ready for
Certainly on my way.
Nice.
And
Okay.
with you see so many different things in the care home, and you hear so many stories. But the majority of the time, people who work there, they just sort of, brush it off as just, people have got dementia. It's nothing really. Even if a chair moves across the room in the middle of the night, it's probably nothing. They just brush it off really easily. But when you start to take it seriously, you start to see that there's strange stuff going on. And so some people do take it seriously. And one night I was doing a night shift with one other staff member, and we were talking about this one resident, and let's call her Myrtle. That's not her real name. We'll keep some confidentiality.
Yeah, keep her anonymous.
Yes.
So none of the listeners hunt her down or anything. Or she might listen to this and why did Joel tell my story?
And so I'm there with my colleague. It's like 4:00 in the morning, so the best time to talk about this sort of things. And we're talking about Myrtle, and we're like, there is a strangeness to her, She's got this mood where she's not like all the other girls, She's got this mood where, with dementia, you see a trend. People, they're forgetful. They lose themselves and they can't remember a conversation for a few seconds. they're still themselves, but less.
Mm-hmm.
But this lady, Myrtle, she had a different tone to her. She'd stare into your eyes, and she'd never blink. She'd have this weird stare, and she'd try and kiss you.
Mm.
You know, she'd try and be lustful.
Just to you or to other?
She did do it to others, but
Okay. Mainly
particularly
to
me.
you.
Particularly me.
Don't blame her at all, Joel. Do not,
Makes
do not blame her in the slightest.
I thought it was.
She's not, you know. There you carry on.
And you know, you could put that down to the dementia. You know, their minds are falling apart, so different things are going to come up.
Yeah, the kiss you, it gotta be.
She must really be going through it. Yeah.
No, you're beautiful.
She'd try and hurt people as well a lot.
Mm.
She was lusty with other people that were there in the care home, and she was known for that. My colleague said that sometimes she'd try and Myrtle would try and push my colleague down the stairs to try and hurt her, or other times Myrtle would be at the top of the stairs, and my colleague would be about to go up the stairs from the bottom of the stairs, look up, and see Myrtle there, and she'd just do this death-defying, like this deathly scream. Myrtle would just staring
How
down.
old is she again? Like old lady.
Old lady, yeah. Staring at her, screaming her down.
Wow.
This shriek. Nice. And she'd walk around slowly, never blink, and it was just a really strange tone. And so, yeah, so that same evening, about an hour later, we were sat in the lounge still.
Mm-hmm.
And then we hear Myrtle coming down the stairs, doing it in the way she would normally do it, where she'd step like one step at a time, just slow, like boom, boom, boom. And she's old age, so you know maybe it's just her old age, but it's creepy. It's creepy anyway. And so she comes up, and she comes into the room. She does her usual. She looks at me. She sees me in the chair, and she leans over at me, and she's like, "Kiss me passionately."
It's going to be a bit of an X-rated podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the worst.
Just don't reveal anything you're going to regret later on, Joel. Don't incriminate yourself now.
Yeah, and then the next
Who knows if
I'll
Abby's
just skip
listening
the
or
next
whatever,
part,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
And because obviously she was you know, she was seeming creepy. And we'd had the conversation, me and my colleague. My colleague pulled up a chair in front of me and said, "Go on, Myrtle, sit down and you can talk to Joel." And
Good wingman.
and yeah, she sat down in front of me, and the conversation got going, and it was just like, I don't know why it just came out so quickly. I just said to her, "Is there anyone else inside of that body other than Myrtle?"
What?
And immediately she was staring at me, not blinking, doing her usual, leaning across, looking at me like she's trying to get something from me. And as soon as I asked the question, she went, "Yes." I'm like, "Okay, this is weird." I'm like, "Okay."
You got to protect yourself subtly in situations.
And you know, it was a leading question, so who knows how it could have gone. But then the conversation kept going, so I asked her, "Okay, well, you know, what's your name?" And she makes some slur like you see in the movies where it's like I'm like, okay, and I'm like, I didn't catch that, and I ask it again, and she does it again, and I still didn't get it, so I ask her
That's
again.
a glitch in the Matrix.
Maybe it is.
It's a name in like a ghost language
Is that right?
that can't be translated for human tongue. No, I made that up. So.
Yeah.
But
I was thinking the same thing. It could be like, you know, if another being to pronounce your name and like another, you know. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
No, it's just that makes sense.
Very on, Joel.
And
She could just be schizophrenic. And
perhaps.
no, go on, Joel.
But what
I'm
does that
buying
mean?
this. I'm buying this.
Yeah, I mean, keep it.
So so then I'm like, okay, no, this is not working, you know. And then I remember like seeing movies. That's how like demons pronounce their names and stuff in some weird slur. And I'm like, I'm just gonna move on and not try and repronounce that and just ask a different question. And I said, okay, were you human once before, this other entity? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, when were you human before? Like, you know, she died or it died. And she gets a little bit frustrated and says like 1446. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. And then I ask, you know, what caused you to die? And I didn't understand what she said.
This is a pretty far out conversation, Joel, with the residents.
The conversation went on for about 20 minutes, but like she was never breaking eye contact, and the context was staying the same. And the thing with people with dementia is when you have a conversation with them, they get distracted easily. They think about something else. They don't remember the conversation you're having, and the context changes.
Back to Rupert a bit, like that.
Exactly.
What was that? What you on about?
Who's back to Rupert? And then at one point she looked at me, and she looked at me with her gaze, her piercing gaze, and it went silent for a few seconds. She just went, "You're too strong." I'm like, hang on a minute. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to push in or something? And so I get this feeling that she's trying to push in. She's trying to break in some way.
Into your consciousness.
Into my consciousness.
Into your body.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
And
you gotta
so
be. I had experiences like that before, and you have to, because it's like you got your aura, you know. So that's how they try it. You know, they try because, you know, in the Vedas, ghosts or bhutas, they are like, you know, they can haunt people, and they can also be like parasites that can, like, you know, suck. So they try and, like, you know, enter into your personal space somehow or other, you know,
and obviously, like
and alter you.
someone with dementias, they're weak. Their cell
Exactly,
body's
yeah.
weak because it's
Yeah.
all over the place. It's like the mind's really breaking down.
Yeah, some of the defenses of the body, maybe, you know.
And it's a dark place as well in a care home like that.
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
you've
so
got
you've got the lower
so
modes.
much dark energies.
So she said you're too strong.
No, she didn't, but said it.
Yeah.
So yeah, she said that, and it felt like she was trying to push in, break in. So I just leant back and I was like, "Hang on, no, don't do this. You know, I'm trying to have a compassionate conversation with you here.
Stay back, demon.
Yes, stay back, demon. I'm trying to
It's funny how you have
compassionately speak with you.
I've seen it in the movies before.
hello, ghost. I'm just trying to be compassionate.
I'm
here."
just trying to preach to
Ghosts
you.
don't speak
Can
in
you
our
say
language.
Hare
Yeah.
Krishna? And I said, yeah, stop. You know, I'm trying to be compassionate. You know, I want to have a conversation with you. If you're going to try and, like, break in and, you know, take over me, then I don't want to have this conversation. I'll end it right here. And you could see in her eyes that she knew what I was talking about. And so she slumped back in her chair, crossed her arms, and looked a bit grumpy at me, like, "How dare you put up boundaries with me?"
Poor ghost.
Which is interesting. And then the conversation went on. I don't remember everything that was said. I remember asking her something about Jesus, and she immediately made a reference to Judas, which, you know, is Judas is the one that betrayed
Jesus,
him.
yeah.
Which was interesting because in the context of her basically taking on the role of some demonic entity, to then start referencing the devil as well, and have a context that flows through for 20 minutes. You know, she also, you know, I asked her at one
So what
point.
you're saying is, for her to hold this train of thought and conversation, that's completely unusual for someone with dementia. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. They can't, you know, it's difficult for
Well,
them
no matter
to do
what
that
they
for
were
20
talking about, they
seconds,
can't.
not 20 minutes,
Yeah.
you know. And so, yeah, so that was a large part of why it was so spooky and convincing.
That's spooky. Do you ever see her again after that?
Yeah, so the conversation eventually ended because I had to get up and do
Kiss
my
her.
work.
Sorry. Kiss. Okay, kiss.
And I said, okay, this conversation's ending. I'm getting up. I got to go work. And she looked grumpy again. But then, as I got up and walked around the house doing my work, she followed me very slowly with her hands behind her back, just watching me, staring at me, waiting for me to give her something.
Did that freak you out at all?
For the whole morning, me and my colleague, because we were both there during the conversation, we were just like quiet because we didn't know what to make of the whole situation.
Yeah.
And there was more said in the context when you're there as well. You feel the weight of it. You
Uh-huh.
feel the piercing.
So was your
gaze
colleague
that she's
freaked
got.
out as well?
Oh yeah, she was proper freaked
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Uh-huh. And so the context actually continued for weeks. Whenever I'd see her, and if it was, you know, more with less people around, the context would continue, and like the conversation would carry on. And I don't remember the things that were said, but it was like, hey, look, there's a relationship building here between me and some entity inside a person, because it's referring back to previous things and recognizing a dynamic between us. And you know, I wasn't getting that with anyone else in the care home, because they forget that dynamic. They're like, who are you again? What's happening? And yeah, and I remember I messaged Vamsi about the situation.
It's like, I mean, like, what's those films like where they, what was it called? Shutter Island? You ever seen that?
Oh yeah.
And he's going there. It's a mental hospital, and he's there. meant to, I can't remember, to investigate something, isn't it? And turns out he's a patient. So it was quite funny. Like, you got the patients in there, but also one of the nurses. And I think it's true. I think but just from someone else's point of view, they'd be like, and one of the nurses thinks he's talking to a ghost that's possessing this lady. And it's like wander around.
Maybe I'm
who's the crazy one. But no, I believe what you're saying.
It doesn't say, that must say a lot about me, but it doesn't sound like crazy at all. What Joel is saying, like,
I guess most people would probably think, without the past sort of understanding, most people, I imagine most people would think it's a jump to assume this person's possessed.
Okay, yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm deep. Like I'm into it.
Yeah.
Like I feel like
No,
sure.
but like Joel said, what's the reason for it? How come this person can hold a coherent conversation and no one else can? And a lot of the time, there's nothing. Seeing things on face value, or seeing like, okay, what's the likelihood of what is happening here? And since there's not only so much discussion of it in spiritual literatures all over the world, but there's also like first-hand empirical evidence of all sorts of like the paranormal. So why can't it be like yes, like someone, she's another living entity is, I guess, inhabiting that body, right?
So
what are you going to say?
You did the natural thing. He naturally called the monk.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Spoke Vamsi, yeah.
Oh
Vamsi.
yeah.
What do I do? I call the monk.
Yeah,
Makes sense, innit?
Yeah, well, because I was quite close with some Christian friends as well at the same time, so I basically went to both of you guys, the Christians and the monks, and the Christians. The main message I got back was, "Oh, that sort of thing doesn't happen anymore." Those sort of possessions, that was only back in Bible times.
It happens all the time, like,
And yeah, they
even the Vatican they have their own. At the minute, they have their own like department that just deals with exorcisms all over the world. And it says the amount of evidence that they have in the Vatican of all these previous, you get it all over the world. There's like, Vaishnav, Hindu, Hare Krishna exorcists.
Yeah.
You get all sorts of stuff like that. So many stories of.
I got possessed. Yeah, but remember with Vamsi?
Yeah.
I think I got possessed.
Yeah. You either got possessed or you've just been a jerk.
It didn't feel like my normal jerkiness. Like it felt like the vision changes a little bit. Like your vision becomes colder.
Yeah, you get influenced all the time.
Yeah.
In Mahabharat, I think was it Duryodhan? Anyway, the Kali and some of these agents of Kali, which are like, I guess, like, the opposite to angels, some demons, whatever, and they were saying that they wanted to influence certain like people in power over the subtly in order to achieve their goals. Sri Ram Maharaj was saying that, that's why sometimes if you're not strict in your spiritual practice, and you can be taken advantage of. I was telling you the other day, I was doing traveling Sankirtan, giving out books, and I was with one devotee who was traveling with a lot called Abai. I remember it was late at night. We were in a travel lodge, and it was just dingy, and you could tell it wasn't like the cleanest environment, like subtly even. I remember when you have a dream and some dark presence enters it, I started to get like disturbed, and I could I woke up and I could tell, okay, there's a presence in the room. It was very heavy feeling. So I just got my beads and started chanting, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. I was chanting, and I could feel. Again, it was, I could just. So I was thinking, maybe, am I imagining this? So I could feel this presence go on towards Abai, who was sleeping on the other side of the room. And as soon as it starts doing that, and Abai, even though he's sleeping, he starts shaking, and he starts to be really disturbed. You could tell he was like almost like terrified in his sleep. And I said, Abai, you okay? And he stops and he goes, yes.
Ooh.
And he started,
Hare.
I'm like, all right, fine. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Next morning, I speak to him. I said, what happened last night? He said, I was being attacked, by this ghost or living entity in my dream. I said, well, I said if you're okay. I was calling to you. You asked me. I said, I asked if you're okay. And he said, yeah. And I was shouting at you, please help me, please help me.
Yeah, you're paralyzed.
Wow.
From his point of view, from my point of view, I just said yes. You know. Anyway, they've got there's loads of stories.
I had it on Halloween, like up in Splot. Halloween night, I was laying there sleeping, and like, it felt like I was in the bunk bed. There was like these, you know, the railings on the side of the bunk bed.
Yeah.
I felt like I opened my eyes. My eyes were open, and I could see this figure staring at me.
Mm.
And because Daichari was underneath me, I was like, "This is definitely Daichari." And then like, but then I opened my eyes, and it was the same sight, but without the figure. So every time I closed my eyes, there was a figure there.
Yeah.
And it was like trying to terrify me. It was just like over me, like like this kind of energy. And I remember I was just like, I just like, it had this like terror potency. Like it made me feel terror. But I was kind of sober. I was just like, okay, there's something happening here. There's terror. I can't contact Daichari. I was trying to scream to him like, Daichari, help, help. Wasn't happening. So I just started thinking about Prabhupada, like memories. Like I was looking up the picture of Prabhupada in my mind, like just watching Prabhupada. And like as soon as I was like imagining just Prabhupada, like different things that he did, this thing, it just lost its power completely. Like its terror potency just was like...
Yeah, like, you know, that's what I sort of said before, worked out before. It seems they have a fear potency. Because on paper, a lot of the time it's like, why are you feeling so scared? During the day, if you're in this, there's no reason for you to feel so scared, but sometimes you're just terrified. You don't know why. It's at night, and it's because these are
they're like pushing something on you.
Other living entities. Yeah. You get good entities as well. You know, I remember Devamita Swami, he gave a really cool talk on UFOs, and someone asked him about guardian angels. You know, does Krishna consciousness accept this idea of guardian angels? And he was saying, well, you know, there's so many different living entities in all the different levels of reality. And some, just like, some living entities like to cause a disturbance, and some living entities like to help. So if you drop your wallet on the floor and someone says, "Oh, here you go," you say, "Oh, thank you, you're an angel." So you're saying there's other beings that also help people as well. But you had another story, Joel, right? That was one.
Joel was trying to help that guy, wasn't he? That ghostly.
Yeah.
He's an angel.
Just wanted
I'm just trying to be compassionate with a ghost.
Well, yeah, because I went and read that chapter in the Gita. What is it? Demons and...
Divine and demoniac.
Divine and demoniac, yeah. And because I wanted to help, but a lot of people were feeling... It felt like a lot of people were telling me, cast it out, get rid of this ghostly entity. And I just read through that chapter, and like I just burst out crying because I suddenly felt this sort of permission to be compassionate to it. So I gave her prasad.
Yeah,
that was really the best I could do.
Do you give her a book? Sell a book?
Should have given her a book.
Yeah.
Should read to her.
She's got a lot of free time. So.
She's still there?
No.
She's left her body now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, both of them.
What happened to the other living entity?
Rest in peace.
Did he go on to... I wonder if that living entity went on to another...
He's been there since 1486, isn't he?
Yeah.
So.
Well, she.
Wow.
She's been there. Isn't it?
You reckon the ghosts are go?
I don't know
if he wanted to kiss you.
Could be a homosexual ghost.
And you've... yeah, who knows? They say male ghosts are attracted to women and women ghosts are attracted to men.
Yeah.
Makes sense, but...
Yeah, it did seem like some ghosts in that building were passed around. There was like one room where... Yeah.
It's like when you get a new car and this car's not working anymore, I'll get a new one.
Yeah. There was one room where, we had this lady, she was crazy. She like scratch and bite and growl. And then she left that room because she was too difficult to handle and went to a different place completely. And then a new woman came who was very placid and soft. She went into that room and she became exactly like that last woman.
Really?
And it was mad. Yeah.
And would the staff consider these things? That maybe there's
I still know. Yeah. They're just like, they obviously need more drugs.
Don't think about it.
It's not even in the paradigm,
Yeah.
Like it's like our ghost is just something for movies.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't, Like it's the same thing. A lot of end of life nurses talk, and it's called something. We talked about this before. It's labelled, has a name. I can't remember what it is, but basically it's where people, before they leave their body, they start to get very scared and they think there's men with chains and dogs coming to get them. It's like a common thing, and they just think it's some sort of, some glitch in the brain or something. But that's why, if you look at the Vedic literature, like you were saying about paradigms, it includes everything. So there's so much stuff in modern day times that just comes up as anomalous. So why is this happening? Or this seems like it's that way, but it doesn't fit in with our current worldview. So we just have to put it to one side and then just, carry on. But if you have another paradigm that incorporates everything, what we understand about the world now, plus all the things that are considered, unknown, then you should accept that paradigm because it includes everything. It's superior, So there's...
And that's the thing, like, for me, it's just answered all those questions. So now if I think of ghosts, I'm like, it's just this obvious thing that exists. These beings that don't have a gross body, and, sometimes they'll take over someone else's body, sometimes they'll... But that's just obviously... It makes sense. Like, there's no reason to quit, like...
Yeah, you got so many... I mean, it's in a lot of places around the world as well, it's just so much more easily accepted. And it was accepted here in the past, but... You just told that okay, these just things aren't real. It's ghosts, Dracula, Frankenstein. Yeah, but
it's kind of like evolved out of that scientific desire to be able to describe everything through like sensory data, empiric proof and evidence.
Yeah, and it's to perpetuate materialism. Because if all of a sudden you start accepting the fact that ghosts may exist, okay, well, what's a ghost? It's the energy of the living entity minus the material body, which means okay. If there's such things as that, then is there such things as do you continue living after you leave the body? Is there such thing as a God? But then as soon as you start going down that line of questioning, then that naturally leads you away from materialism and being a cog in the machine and being exploited by some materialists with demoniac nature who are running a huge percent of the world.
Everything has to exist in this plane and this plane only, like this material. Like your mind is obviously just a set of synapses releasing, and like this whole scientific paradigm.
It's such an arrogant position to hold. That we, through our own limited sense perception, can understand the universe to a large extent. To think about an ant. If an ant was crawling on this table, it couldn't possibly even begin to conceive of the three people sitting here, what our consciousness is, the level of our experience and awareness, and the way we interpret our lives and life and all these things. And an ant just doesn't have the capacity to understand. Therefore, so similarly, why do we think as a human being, through my senses, I have the capacity to understand? There isn't so much more that's completely beyond just my own experimental knowledge to discover. That's why you have descending knowledge, which is meant to come down to humanity to help us to attain spiritual perfection, sort of thing. It's a type of knowledge that comes from the outside in.
It's like we're always in the past. We see that we're always recognizing. Oh, hang on, we didn't know everything actually, but yet we don't seem to cotton on to the fact that okay, there's plenty more to know, and actually perhaps we are so unknowing. It just seems that as soon as we learn, oh, that's the new thing. Okay, now we know everything. Yeah. And then we learn something else. Oh, okay, now we know everything.
Yeah. Like Krishna, he talks about knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita and how the first step of knowledge is humility. Yeah. Einstein said, "I'm not clever. I'm just walking across the beach of knowledge, and I'm just picking up a few grains of sand."
Damn, that's a good one.
Yeah.
The beach of knowledge. Take me there.
Picking up a few grains of sand. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, thanks for that story, Joe. It was nice.
Yeah, you convinced me. Ghosts are real. Hare Krishna. Okay.
Nice. Do you wanted to discuss change? Or do you think, how long's the episode
It's
now?
half an hour already. Like, I think that's a nice...
I do, it was through.
It's a package.
I'll have to get Joel back again and ask him about his spiritual life.
Yeah. I actually didn't finish the other story.
Oh, yeah, go on.
Okay.
I thought
I mean, if it's already over time.
I haven't even heard you call Vampsy. What did he say?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this, I was just relating that to the book thing, crying about it. But
What did he say?
He said that the description I gave him sounded like everything that he understood to be, all made sense to him. He just never heard of an experience that was so colourful and and expressive of all those things at once.
Mm-hmm.
So
it doesn't seem like you'd make something up either. You're not a maker-upper like that.
Sometimes.
Is it?
I guess the cynic would say that you might generally believe it, but it's whether how you interpret the information.
Yeah, it could just be you speaking to a mad person, right? And then you're like, oh, this must be this must be that.
One mad person speaking to another. Yeah, and as well, they were leading questions I asked her.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, is there someone else inside that body? You know, that's a yes or no question. But you know, it did seem like she was. Yeah, it's one of those things that you can only really.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. They say if people, I mean, I was told by a doctor that if someone's got things like paranoid schizophrenia, you just almost just go along with them. She was saying the more you challenge them and the more you ask questions, well, why do you think that? It doesn't make any sense. The more you do that, it actually seems to almost spiral them in further. Yeah, so she was saying if you think someone's like that, then but I don't know. You know, that's the thing. Modern psychiatry and things probably has so much so much room for growth and understanding. What was the other story, Angel? Go on, shoot.
Yeah, so in that corridor with the room with the crazy, you know, people swapping ghosts.
Yeah.
That whole corridor, people spoke about it being haunted and dark, and it did feel a bit weird, and it was weird. It just felt heavy. And one night, me being very naive, I was sat in the lounge that's the end of the corridor, and on the sofa you can look down the corridor. And I was so naive and silly. And I looked down it, and internally I said, you know, if there's anything there, I welcome you to say hello, because I wanted to be nice and compassionate and silly. And, you know, I didn't experience anything. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And I just got on with the rest of the night. I didn't do anything like, okay, now I'm going to shut the door and say goodbye, and no one's allowed in anymore. It was like, hey, anyone, come on in, say hi. Didn't experience anything, carried on with the day. For the next week, I started getting like my insecurities coming up all the time, couldn't sleep properly. And after a week, I realized, hang on a minute, I did this thing at the start of the week where I invited in literally heavy ghosts, and now suddenly my mind's all going crazy and weird. And I was like, oh damn, you know, it's like I opened my front door to a street that people say is a really dodgy street, and then I just walked away after, you know, shouting at the door, come on in, anyone who wants to come in, and then I walked off and didn't even look, you know, what was happening. And no wonder my house started getting trashed. My mind started getting crazy, you know.
What do you mean your house started getting trashed?
So my insecurities were getting pulled up, all the issues in my mind.
His metaphorical house.
Yeah, my metaphorical,
oh, right, okay.
Metaphorical house, yeah.
Like poltergeist or something. Who's done this? Who's ruined my house?
And, you know, just I couldn't think straight. And
there's a ghost.
There was that you said with your, you know, sleep paralysis sort of thing, that feeling of terror. And I didn't know what to do about it. So for a few months, I was just like, what do? I just feel crazy, you know? And I was getting weird dreams, dark dreams, entities in my dreams. I'd be in safe places, and I'd feel this heaviness, this doom, and I'd be like, what is going on? And eventually I was lucky enough that I met some people who directed me towards someone who did Reiki.
Oh, excuse me, I did Reiki level 2.
Yeah, and this is why I did it.
Level 2 in January.
Level 2. What colour belt is that?
I'm going to have to make sure we don't bang the table. Maybe we don't.
Oh, am I banging the table? Yes,
don't speak close to the mic either.
No one's heard anything I've said
No,
because
it's
I'm
been
screaming in their ears.
But it avoids that.
Yeah. Okay.
Reiki level 2, congrats.
Oh, thank you. That worked.
How many levels are in total? 3?
I think there's 3, yeah.
3? Oh,
Reiki master soon.
that'd be amazing.
Oh, watch out.
Oh, you'd be so powerful. Then. Go on.
Harry Bolt.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, I went to this like farm workaway community thing, and I met with this lady, and she told me some story about her. You know, she smoked weed with someone, saw he had this like heavy, angry person inside him, you know, and then a few months later, this guy very violently hurt someone to death.
Very violently hurt someone to death.
Yes, it's very with a hammer.
Hurt someone to death.
Hit them.
I don't know how PG you want me to be. They beat someone up with a hammer and killed them.
Mm-hmm.
And so she kind of had this ability to see when someone's got some weird attachment or something. And anyway, me and her, we had a little smoke together, and she looked at me and she said, she got shocked, and she said she saw a man with a net over me, and he was like draining my energy. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, what? That kind of explains how I'm feeling after this ghostly entity stuff.
Mhm.
And so it was from there I got directed to the Reiki, and the Reiki, my Reiki healer was able to say, hey, yeah, look, there's actually 3 different entities that are attached to you. And it did happen when you open yourself to this corridor, this place. And she was able to remove them and teach me some techniques to keep myself safe, such as don't open your front door to...
Have I got any ghosts?
Have you got any ghosts? I am not advanced enough to just quickly...
You're level 2 though.
Level 2, like, yeah.
Come on.
Level 1's look after you, like, you know.
Level 1's a rookie. Level 2 is basically
Level 1's like, you're the
almost
man.
master.
Like, yeah. That's the thing. See, I know, because I know people who do Reiki. Nima used to be a Reiki master, and I visit people who do, like, you know, they seem intelligent, they go with Reiki. I have so little faith in it, like, you know. I'm not a believer. I'm not a true believer in Reiki. I'm sure you can get people who can do that some places in the world. Like, you know, you've had stories. I remember Indrajit Maharaj, he found this witch doctor that saved his life in the Amazon jungle and stuff, you know.
Classic.
But I'm just, I'm yet to be convinced, like, you know. You'd have to give me a Reiki session one day. Like,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Because it's, you know, it was one of those things I wasn't sure about either. And then I did it, and I was like, oh, wow, this is potent. And a lot of stuff changed after that.
See, our second story is less convincing than the first story.
Yeah.
For me. Like,
what do you mean, the one with the,
like
I opened the door,
opening the door.
felt like it had this living entity,
Just,
smoked a spliff for some lady, and
Yeah.
realised it was going.
She saw something and
that
scared me.
yeah, that took the...
I don't know, you know. It
Yeah.
could be. You get. It's still material. You know, all these things are still material. Living entities, good. They're not spiritual because they're still in the arena of the material world.
Within the system.
Yeah. So there's nothing. So many people think this is spirituality. You know, like you have spiritualist churches, even, which, like, from my understanding, they're very focused on this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, let's, you know, I'm picking someone up. I'm picking up someone. You know, does this name mean anything to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Spiritual means outside of the matrix. It's not within the system, isn't it? It's like all these
That's what we
ghosts, all this
define it,
stuff.
isn't it?
It's
That's what
within
we
the game. Like,
Yeah.
it's within the Maya.
Yeah, it's material. And if you look at the, you know, if you take what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita with the modes of nature, in one sense, the darker and darker the modes are, it's more material.
Dense.
More materialistic than you get it a lot of places in India. They worship ghosts. So, ghosts can inhabit a tree or something, and then the villagers worship it. And far out things like that.
It's our first episode since India. We'll have to do an India episode.
Is this our first episode in India?
Since, yeah.
Really?
We haven't done one since. We'll have to do a recap. Another episode.
Yeah. We'll
Talk
talk
about-
about India one.
I got some cool things about
Yeah.
Kalki, and I gotta go soon because there's a meeting.
Oh yeah.
But,
Okay. Well, listen to a couple of stories. I'll have Joel on again.
Yeah.
Because we want to talk about some other stuff, but let's get back into a routine.
Yeah. We got Radhaman here as well. Maybe he can come on tomorrow or something. If he's up for it.
Yeah. See what the schedule is.
That'd be nice. So, okay. Hare
All right.
Krishna.
Well, thanks, Joel.
Yeah, thanks for having
Yeah.
me.
Time flew.
Yeah.
Have to have you back. Let's get more into see what happens. I guess that's the first part of the story, and having these like ghostly experiences, and then your journey closer towards Krishna from that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We've been Welsh Yogis. Keep an eye out for the latest Bhakti Yoga retreat coming up. And lots of love. We'll see you all soon. Yeah.
Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya